Sometimes I think I can feel. Sometimes I think you were almost here. And how if I close my eyes, any of this could be real. I'm not two hands reaching for you. I'm not the song on your lips. I'm not the answer to your darkest prayer escaping your fingertips. How can I see? And there's nothing there. How can I believe when you're made of air? You're a phantom.
You're listening to the Eclectrocasts podcast. This is podcast number 37. This podcast features Huntsville, Alabama-based singer, songwriter, musician Ingrid Marie. Ingrid Marie is a frequent performer and studio vocalist. We spoke with her about her recent album, Manna, working with producers, relationships, and community.
To the coldest night made the dawn seem near. I was buried by slowly, hands past the ancient baton, silhouettes beside the blade of light, marching on. How can I see? There's nothing there. How can I believe when you're made of air? You're a phantom. It's getting colder in here. Keeps getting colder here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Eclectrocast. This is Eclectrocast number 37. This is Case, and I'm here with Sarah Schonert.
Howdy.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi. Everybody knows Sarah. Jeff is on hiatus, and it's great to have you as a co-host, Sarah.
Happy to help out.
Cool. It was your idea to have our guest of today, Ingrid Marie from Huntsville, Alabama. And hi, Ingrid.
Hey, guys.
So very, very welcome, and great to have you on the show. Sarah, it was your idea. So how did you get to know Ingrid, and why did you want to bring her on Eclectrocast?
We were both part of, it's kind of one of those girls in music chats back, was it about a month ago or better? And we were talking about promotions and understanding your sound as well as who you sound like. And we started chatting, and we started chatting otherwise, and I really dig her sound. I listened to Origami on SoundCloud and decided, you know what? I think I'd like to talk to her more in this kind of setting.
So Ingrid, what do you get out of those chats? And these are all women musicians that talk with each other? through Twitter?
Yes, everything. I get everything out of these chats. They really keep you up to speed on just what's going on. And I've gotten so much help as far as, technical support. In fact, the show that Sarah was talking about, we were discussing our styles and the sound, and some of the girls had some real clever ideas on how to frame their work, which I picked up on. In other words, Bonnie Raitt meets Fiona Apple, or, things like, Joss Stone had a baby with Tom Petty. Just a really good framework for understanding, this is what I'm going to hear. This is what I would download if I went and looked them up. We spent a good bit of time just framing our own styles and pitching things to each other. It's just so helpful. It's such a great group.
Yeah, really interesting. Because one of the things that when I started listening to your music on advice of Sarah a little while ago, you have a cunning capability of doing a number of styles really, really well. So how did you come to sing? How did you develop all these different affinities and these different abilities to use your voice?
I was raised in a very musical home, but it was very strictly classical. And my primary influence as a young child was Julie Andrews, which I've spent the rest of my life trying to use a rasp and a file and gargle gravel and all kinds of things like that, kind of to get that pureness off of it. But she was really an influence until I finally got a boombox and I started listening to more of the pop charts and things like that. I want to say things like My Way, like Frank Sinatra was on the elevators and the dentist offices that I went to. And so the jazz must have gone in my ear, but I didn't do anything with it. And I did a few musicals in high school, and I studied cello and piano at Eastman Theater in Rochester, where I grew up, Rochester, New York. And went on to college, went to Virginia Tech. And that was the point when I really started playing with styles. We covered in our little ambassador music group a lot of different artists, pretty much anybody that was on the pop charts. And then we did sort of a special jazz medley. And at that time, the soundtracks were coming out for Harry Met Sally and the, what's that Postal movie? You've Got Mail. You've Got Mail, right? Well, all those soundtracks were coming out. I was inspired, and I began to learn some of those tunes. And again, didn't do much with them. I did a few bands, and as musicians, we play for hire. I hadn't really done much of the bulk of my songwriting. Didn't come until later. I just didn't have the confidence or really think that was me. I didn't know that was a place to start for me. I was just good at covering. I'm like a chameleon, like you said. Play for hire, sing the songs that are popular and what people ask me for.
So, so did you have an interest in singing and music from a very young age, or this was more sort of, you had no choice because you grew up in a musical family?
It's all I ever wanted to do. Only thing I've ever been interested in doing. We had a Steinway in the house. The three of us. I have two siblings, older and younger brother, and we would actually fight over practice time. And when I was falling asleep at night, I could hear my mom playing these beautiful classical compositions. And then I remember she wrote something. I was about 15, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. I didn't see my mom that way. I didn't understand her as a creative because she was a biophysicist. And this music that seemed to be coming up from out of her songs grabbed me. And they, like mine, actually were very picturesque. I only ever heard two of hers, but I remember both of them just crystal clear. And yeah, so music was always around us. My dad was a whistler, and he could play anything in the key of C on the piano.
That's me. I only use the white keys.
No problem with that. Sarah McLachlan, now she's all over the black keys.
Right.
She uses that circle of fifths in a round and all those black keys. I studied her for a long time. Tori Amos also, both of them. And, and like Sarah's music, it's really, a lot of it's piano driven. Would you say that? Sarah, of your
Yeah.
own music? Would you say you're mostly piano driven?
Yes.
You write on anything
Yeah.
else?
I write on guitar sometimes and accordion.
Do you which is your second language out of the instruments that you just mentioned?
So I mean, of course, keys is my primary, but I would say actually my second one is actually the oboe.
Oh, wow.
I played oboe for years and years, and even now I can still pick it up and I can still remember how to play it. So
Other musicians do this thing that I do. I'm pretty weak on the guitar. Most folks, when I perform, think, hey, she's really pulling that off. It's not like they came to see a guitarist, but yeah, it works fine. But when you write on that second language, on that second instrument, do you sometimes find that you maybe make more mistakes that are super cool and keep them?
definitely with guitar,
Yeah.
I've made some ugly mistakes on the guitar.
And then you grab them and it becomes
Mm-hmm.
this new song that's really unusual.
Yep, I listen to a ton of podcasts all over, and one of my favorites is the Nerdist podcast, and they've interviewed a lot of people. Actually, I've heard it come up several times that, especially like with Prince, they interview people that have talked to Prince, and one of his things is when he makes a mistake on stage, he repeats it, so it sounds like it was on purpose. So I've adopted that.
That's what one of the Marcellus brothers, I'm not sure if it's, maybe it's Branford, but I think they say in jazz, if you hit a wrong note, you just hold it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Play it
Yep.
really well, right?
Eventually it's going to be right.
Yeah.
Well, if you're confident, it sounds right.
Yes,
I use
ma'am.
that in meetings at work too. I just sound like I know what I'm talking about, and they all believe me. It works out great.
You really do.
So you have several videos out on YouTube. We can see you there playing the guitar and also playing the keyboards. And I was wondering if your composition process, I assume then, is mostly on the piano. Is that correct?
It's my go-to. I usually start compositions on the keys, like Sarah was saying. However, there are certain tunes that have a melody which might be basic, and I'll fiddle around on the guitar before I go to the keys in hopes that the process will develop a little bit with chord progressions, the timing, the rhythm. I can go back and forth from 3/4 to 4/4 easily on the guitar. Only know a few chords, but again, once you stumble over something, a lot of times that becomes the keeper because it's different from your last song with the A chord and the G chord and the C chord. All of a sudden you missed and you found something. I play the sus chord to a fault. That sus4 is almost in everything, and I don't know if I picked it up from Gordon Lightfoot. That one song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, was one of the first songs I learned to play, or from listening to Bruce Hornsby. And they both have, they use the 11s and the 9s in their chords. And they, to me, are the most haunting and beautiful sounds that you could make. And so I do keep returning back to that.
So you like these harmonies in the chords. Can you talk a little bit about your composition process, because you are also a very creative lyricist. I enjoyed reading your lyrics, and you do weave words together, very musically, which is not an easy thing to do. So where do you start with a song?
I start in my backyard or in the passenger seat of somebody's car or overhearing a conversation between my kids. There's always that impetus that just strikes you, and you hear a phrase. I instantly put it in my notes on my iPhone. And what happens for me, my background is poetry. I am a poet major, and I write pages and pages every day. I wake up, I write a minimum of 3 pages, and I call it brain drain. I got it from The Artist's Way, which is a manual that you can get. And it's got all these different ways to prevent artist block so you can continue to create. But my world around me it's a tapestry. It's just a soundscape of different things going, and I never know what's going to happen. Typically, the most inspiration I get is from something visual. For instance, if you're on a train and the windows are moving the countryside by in slides, something like that will start. Something in my brain will turn on. Walking is great for that. Taking a shower, a lot of people refer to, they get their best ideas while they're simply, the clutch is pressed in and there's no load on the engine, and all of a sudden it starts spinning and the gears go. And in my head, I will get an earworm literally several times a day from something that I hear. It could be, there's a bird out back that does a little Brubeck riff, and I'm pretty sure Brubeck ripped him off. I believe most of what we hear and write comes from all the little clues that we get from our environment. And it starts off little earworm, goes through my head through the whole day. I don't even know it's there. I'm shopping, I'm walking, there's a little bounce in my step, and all of a sudden the melody starts popping back and forth. And there's almost always simultaneously a little phrase from either something cute that one of my friends said, or it could even be media. It could be a marketing, an ad that you pass by, anything like that. And then the words will start off themselves, but I don't necessarily know what the song is about or where it's going yet. And my best process is not to go straight to the instrument then or to the page and write down what I have. It's to not do that. It's to let the song finish as much of itself as it possibly can and be more of a conduit for words that rhyme. I have a poet's ear, so the syllables, the up and down phrasing of the lines when the words rhyme, which is not all important, but a lot of them do. So it makes it easy to work with them. And I just repeat those phrases. When I've got a good line that I like, I'll come up with a second line almost immediately, and I repeat it. And I memorize it. I repeat it, and I repeat it. And then the whole verse will write. And eventually the chorus will give over its meaning to me. And at that point, since I have the melody already, I know what the bass line is to the melody because I know what the chords are that I'm hearing in my head. So just go and take it to the instrument at that time. Sometimes I'll jot the full notes down on my iPhone and then just sing off of that. But it's pretty quick from there.
Sarah, for you, I think it is more the other way around, right? You begin with the music and then you add the lyrics in?
It depends. It really, really does. I do a lot of the same in the car with the repeat, but then I'm always afraid I'm going to lose it. So I usually hit the record button on my iPhone just to make sure that I don't lose something later. Unfortunately, I forget very quickly. So I don't have that luxury of, repeating it until it sticks in my head, unfortunately.
Ingrid, can you talk a little bit about origami and from this perspective of writing and composing?
Well, and that's a great segue because, origami is something that is fashioned from a flat, colored piece of paper, and you turn it into these creative expressions of your paper art. And I've always been fascinated by the origami, the Japanese culture behind it. And at the time, I remember feeling a little bit jaded about relationships and thinking, boy, you can really fabricate anything you want. And we do that in love and romance. In our world, sometimes the fake it till you make it thing, you can fabricate anything you want. And so the words for that just kind of came from that place of, boy, I wish. Oh, if I could only make this, if I could only make that. And there were some aspects to the relationship where they were simply dreamy, and I was very happy with it. But the underlying dissatisfaction of it is where the actual lyric came from of, well, actually, at a certain point, origami can only take you so far. And you get to the chorus and it says, origami holiday, when it rains, the colors are bleeding. So it's not so great for holding up. But, I list a few of the things that are great about it. It's built for every possibility. It's built for every capability. It's built for easy portability. And then you get into the sense of, well, maybe it's a little bit fake. Maybe it's not lasting or true. And really, the things that we love in life, like I love tomato pie. Now, tomato pie is lasting and true. I don't have to make up any sort of false scenario with tomato pie. They're going to put it in front of me. I'm going to eat it. It's going to be gone. But with love and romance, not so much. You really, you struggle a little. You have to work at it a little bit. And a lot of the things we come up with, they're not quite correct, especially when you first meet that person. You create them to be a little bit something that...
And there's no recipe, right? for a relationship.
Great. It's going to come out different every time.
Yeah. Well, I think, in relationships, the only recipe is you yourself, right? To be true to yourself.
Absolutely.
I thought it was a sort of a funny song. It begins kind of almost like sort of a upbeat reggae style rhythm. And then, I almost got a sense of it going into the genre of Edie Brickell, and which who I'm an admirer of.
Me too.
But I really like the juxtaposition you do in there, and it almost gave me a sense of sarcasm or irony. Sort of these juxtapositions, they tickle you. They tickle me, and I got great joy from that track.
It's whimsy. The whimsy, I think, of everything when you're talking about being genuine. Folks that hear me, they say, well, you really are. I mean, they don't use this phrasing, but they will say you're a little all over the place with your covering other artists and writing. And I think the heart of me, it's a little bit silly. It's a tiny bit bitter. It's a lot of fun. And then, as we were talking earlier for this interview about the melancholy that always pops out, I do have to credit the producer of Manna. His name's Rick Hirsch, and he does NSYNC Productions. He was the one that took probably the more original Edie Brickell of the piano track that I wrote Origami with. And he put the reggae against it. And I want to say he's very deep. And I want to say that he could see the complexity of the material, of the lyrics, of nice. Like you're saying, juxtapositions, and created that. And it's been Origami reggae ever since then. That's how everybody plays it. My bands all pick up on that and love it.
So let's have a listen to it. Everybody, we're talking with Ingrid Marie. She's an artist from Huntsville, Alabama. We're listening to a track called Origami, and it is from the album Manna.
Could you picture me a village out of paper white? Cut out the clouds by the coronet. A pocket-sized umbrella or a tiny kite. In case we're caught in the weather, it's an origami holiday. When it rains, colors are bleeding. It's an origami holiday, built for everything you need. You can wrap it around your fingers, wear it like a ring. Tuck it under, twist into a tiny pair of rings. Fashion me a forest out of paper mache. Here come 100 horses gonna carry us away. Origami holiday. When it rains, colors are bleeding. It's an origami holiday, built for every possibility, built for easy portability. It's built for only you and me. Fold me up some Ashley furniture. Frank Lloyd Wright. Maybe a little vaulted wooden ceiling. Origami holiday. When it rains, colors are bleeding. It's an origami holiday, built for every possibility, built for every capability. It's built for easy portability, built for only you and me.
So that puts us all in a happy mood listening to this origami reggae. You started talking about your relationship with a producer, Rick Hirsch. Can you, for all of us who have aspirations to work like that. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to work with a producer?
It's a relationship. It's like starting a family. It's complex, it's beautiful, it can be harrowing. Our relationship in the studio lasted 7 years as we put each of these tracks together. We actually recorded twice as many tunes as are on the album Manna. And at the very end, the most difficult part was picking who the siblings were and saying, okay, these others belong on a different track. It was my first chance to work with a dedicated producer that wanted to put together a sound. Rick's the one that found my sound that you hear, what I would call my signature sound, which is on Hand Me Down, Manna. The best vocal I believe I've ever done was in his studio at H2O, the West Coast version, and it was the Breaking Free track. And yeah, just it's warm and Bonnie Raitt-ish. I don't know what we did different on that day or what mic we used differently that day, but there's something in those chords and the pads. And in this case, I understand sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's not, but Rick did the engineering and the production. He also played guitar tracks on there. So he's got quite a bit of different instruments in there. He also called all his buddies that he thought would make a perfect sound on this or that track and called them in. And it just became a rich landscape of different types of sounds all coming together. A lot of the instrumentation's similar from song to song. I think that's how you tie it together.
So how much input do you generally like to have? And do you get as much input as you want with a producer, or do you like to sit back?
I like a lot of input, and I don't like to miss a thing. I like to be there when they make all the choices. I like to, when we did a lot of this remotely, Rick's 2 studios, one's in Mobile, Alabama, and one's out in West LA. And he would send MIDI files back and forth. He would send me something that a sax player had done and give me options as far as which one to pick. But when it came down to it, I trusted his ear because of his expertise and his experience. He's been doing it for a long time, has worked with all different types of artists, and he had an idea about what type of sound to produce. At some point, I think you have to maybe cut those ties, or you have to enter into some of the production yourself, not just working with the producer hand in hand, but you have to move forward into your own production and try to create your own sound once you've gathered enough experience. But I wasn't there when we met. I really needed that feedback. And again, with the caliber of musicians that we were working with, you trust them, you give them the chords really, but you don't arrange a line for them to play. You say, this is what the song sounds like, looks like, feels like. Now you add the texture to it. You make it your own. And suddenly this thing becomes like watching a movie. Everything's working together.
Right. It's really is requires some strength to give that out of hand, right? I mean, Sarah and I have, we frequently share our work in various stages, and it takes some courage to do that, and trust, that you'll be taken seriously.
Right.
Yep. Sometimes feedback's not what you were thinking it was going to be, but by the end of it, it always makes it better. I've worked with a couple of producers myself, but they're much more on the amateur level. And what I have found is that I can really tell when somebody knows what they're doing, and I don't mind sitting back. But when I feel like I can do it better than they can, I end up giving a lot more feedback, and I get very frustrated very quickly. So I'm always looking for, talking to people that have had other experiences with different producers and collaboration.
So Ingrid, you send us a more tracks than we're going to be listening to today, and we start out with Origami, which is a bit of an up-tempo track. But the other tracks you have sent us are lower tempos, slower tempos, ballad-like kind of tracks. And it seems to me that those give you a wonderful opportunity to express more emotion in your singing. I hear sometimes at the end of a phrase that you sort of press your breath in a certain way. Or in the middle, you have a little hesitation, and then your voice lilts up or it comes down. So it seems like you have a sense of emotion in singing. Can you talk a little bit about how you express emotion and what the role is of emotion in your work?
I would characterize myself for sure as the melancholic temperament, coming from sort of that ageless bard who is always trying to either air their own grievances or sing about the woes of the world. Although I would say for a couple decades, that's probably almost all that I wrote, not having a rhythm section to work with. In the last 5 years or so, most of the songs are upbeat. Most of them, even if they're sort of a slow song and I haven't given them a groove yet, when I work with somebody else, typically we'll find something that's different from what's in our current set list. So we'll maybe we'll put a swing to it or a shuffle or something that maybe wasn't in the original tune. And it's wonderful when you combine that, because like you said, there's the nuance of having that time and that space to, in your words, to press that breath out at the end of a phrase. And
Right.
there are things that we do in conversation with each other. Like if you and I were to have a phone call, or if you're on a breakup with somebody, or you've been with somebody for so long, you're frustrated, and you do these just these sighs and releases, and they express those things that there aren't words for them. And so we should be able to say that with our voices. We should be able to use the style that we, whichever our preferred style is, we should be able to incorporate those feelings into lyric and into our songs. Just different expression.
So, a lot of your songs deal with loss, loss of love, breakups, but also learning to choose for yourself.
Correct.
So I think in She's Famous, you talk about that. You talk about somebody who you have a relationship with, who is looking for a relationship with another woman. It seems like at the heart of that song is really you needing to choose for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that? And can you talk a little bit about how She's Famous came about for you?
She's Famous was in exactly that description of a relationship that I felt I was completely sold out. This was, to me, a life choice. I wanted to be in this situation. And this other person was definitely interested in multiple people. And it was such a letdown to me when I got to that place where I realized there's nothing, absolutely nothing I can do about it. And it was heartbreaking. It was a really big, momentous space that I was in my life, where I really wanted everything to work out, and there was just nothing I could do about it. And the lyrics speak to that in a sense of, I adopted a persona of the speaker's voice in the song, who's sort of like a waitress. And she says, I know you want her and you want me to wait on you. And that means multiple things in most relationships, in a relatable way to most females. Oh, you just want me to sit here and just, wait on you to make up your mind, or wait on you to get home. But in that sense, I continued that line by saying, can I take your order, please? I almost inhabit this waitress. And so there's a place where there's just a maximum frustration and a surrender to the situation, where I know, this is not going to be over soon, and I'm going to have to just still be with this person that I'm all about, that's just interested in somebody else and me on the side, kind of not the priority. It was a hard coming too. And writing about those things, as we put these things into words. Every time I play the song, there's a little healing that happens. There's a little release of that and a let go of, man, well, that didn't work out. And now this time, it's been probably 15 years maybe since I wrote that tune. And still when I play it, I can feel that sense of loss that I was in. But it doesn't take hold of me. It doesn't grab me. It certainly doesn't decide now what relationship that I have to be in. Like you said, that's come full circle, where I can feel like, well, let's not do that again. Let's not let somebody fully take hold of us unless we know that they feel exactly the same. Why go through that?
Right. But I guess what you're expressing is that you came to know yourself a lot better through that process.
Exactly.
With this background, I think it would be kind of nice to listen to the track. Let's have a listen to She's Famous. This is we're talking with Ingrid Marie. She's a singer, songwriter, musician from Huntsville, Alabama. This is a track called She's Famous from her latest album, Manna.
I've decided to stop telling the truth just as soon as I find it. Why should I give the ending away before you take it? All those important words you never heard, you're afraid to use, but you don't want to lose her. 'Cause she's famous, she's beautiful. I know you want her, and you want me to wait on you. And though I'm not that polite today, I simply stop and say, I take your order, please. And I've lost more in this second than your whole first step. And I've lost my pride, it's quite a laugh. Still I take your side, yeah. And I've lost a year, but not my fear of losing you. 'Cause she's famous, I'm not. She's beautiful, and I'm here, and I'm not fine. 'Cause my state of mind's about as straight a line as from here to your heart. To your heart. To your heart. To your heart. To your heart.
Before we listen to She's Famous, we talked a little bit about this idea of emotion. Another element that seems to come out in your music, and particularly in a track called Phantom that I hope we can listen to next, is this idea of tenderness, and particularly tenderness towards a love that seems out of reach. And the song of all the tracks that I've listened to from you seems to have an incredible intimacy, because your voice is right in my ears, and the harmonies are more distant. Beautiful harmonies, by the way. And then there's a guitar that sort of weaves lines around this. So can you talk a little bit about Phantom and this idea of intimacy and tenderness?
There's this thing that happens once you start to adopt those personal settings of the person that you're in love with. You start to, you know what they like to eat, you know where they want their pillow. There's just this tending, like gardening, where you want to create this soil for them. You want to enrich their life. And as women, and I don't know if this is true for all women, it feels to me like a trend, or when I speak with other women about this, but it's a general topic, how do I make him happy? How do I support him? How do I enrich and encourage and nourish him? And so you put so much of yourself into that. And when I was in this relationship that I was writing Phantom about, I felt like the soul had gone out of it. I felt a coldness in the room. When that person was home, I felt like I would look at them and they wouldn't look back at me. They would be looking somewhere else all the time. And it's just that gritty aching of, I wish I could make this something that it's not. But at some point, I respond to that with a certain strength where I'm saying, I'm not two hands reaching for you. I'm not the song on your lips. You're not the answer to my darkest prayer escaping my fingertips. And then the chorus, how can I see? How can I feel? There's nothing there. You're just made of air. You're just a phantom. You're a phantom love.
Right.
Again, it's a thing that was there that escaped. It existed at one time. I believed. I thought. The other person said it did. And then you wake up and at some point there's this vacuum and there's just this emptiness. And so the drama of the piece with, once I worked, and Rick's doing the guitar parts and of course the production on it, once I worked with him on that and brought that song there, and it really helps to have somebody that's fully behind you that understands, and you don't have to sit there and explain a lyric. You don't have to explain a melody or the harmonies, but it's all in the ear. And some of these, mostly I wouldn't give him a chart. I would just play in his room, which was completely made out of wood. And he would just sit there with the guitar and just sort of play along with it. And then we went down into the studio and put the rest together. And this, this piece, Phantom, it's really close to my heart. The topic, the person that the song's about, myself. There's a tenderness toward myself at that time, because I sort of want to take and give that girl the same things that I was willing to share with that other person. Say, well, how can I be the soil for you? How can I nourish you? How can I put you back together? And in the lyrics, in the statement of, I have to accept that there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Then there becomes a moment of choice, like you referred to earlier, that you look at the circumstance and say, well, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to sit here? Am I going to move on? How's this going to work?
Just listening to you talk about Phantom is, I can tell it's very dear to you. And it seems to me that the tenderness you express is also, is mostly to the relationship, right? It's not necessarily to that person, but it's to the preciousness of that relationship, and then having lost it and coming to that realization, because there is no anger or regret in that song, is there?
No, not when you're looking at a ghost in the room. Literally a physical sense of, wow, there's a presence of emptiness. And so it frustrates me as a woman in relationships that most often the man does not realize the preciousness of what he's got. I've seen so many girlfriends go through these breakups where the guy later even in my own circumstances, where later, the guy will come back and say, hey, I really wish we had worked these things out. But often the woman has spent so much time at that point that she really has moved on. And often by the time that the man, puts down his device or takes that time off of work, the thing's long gone. And I hate to separate things by gender, except for the fact that I am a female, and that's really all I can speak to, is my experience there. But
fair enough.
it is. It's just a recurrent topic, and it's sort of tragic. And then, of course, it's humorous. We've got a lot of movies about the comedy of the differences between us, but a lot of times that is the way that it goes. And there's something that's just really precious. It's a one-time shot. It's a thing that will never exist again, and you can keep it alive, or you can slowly suffocate it.
I do see a lot of the opposite side from the guys, and I do think sometimes it is, at least for some of my friends, it's they weren't paying attention before, and now that things are, crumbling, now they want to try to salvage it, and it's hard to tape that all back together.
So your title track, Manna, why did you call the album Manna? And what is the symbolism in manna? It's bread, right? Bread that falls from the heaven.
That's correct. Yes, it fed the Israelites daily for the entire time that they were in the desert. When I met the producer, I had felt that I was not going to get a chance to get back to my music. I'd gotten married and was raising kids, and it felt like a conflict of interest at that time. I didn't stop writing or performing, but the idea of taking my career and making it serious was out of reach. And it was strange. Rick found me online through mutual friends. I think it was on MySpace, possibly. And he was in LA, which made me think that he lived there permanently. Didn't realize that he was in Mobile. I was living in Mobile at the time. And we were able to meet up and get in the studio almost immediately after that. And little did we know, 7 years later, we would finally put the close on that project. And the whole time in between was spent flying back and forth to the West Coast, driving to Mobile, because I did move to Huntsville during that time. And it felt a little bit like hand to mouth every single day, trying to raise two kids, trying to keep a career going in music, trying to pay the bills, trying to be everybody. And at the time, I was convinced that I was the only person available to do any of these things, that I had to go it alone. My life has changed a lot in the past decade since all that started, and I've realized how much support there is and how much community there is. But it's a matter of extending yourself and not always expecting people to come to your door.
Right.
And that's been a major shift for me. It started with a couple of really close friends who demonstrated to me how to be a good friend. And then when I felt filled by that, I reciprocated that into the other areas of my life. Now, Manna, the title track Manna, we chose that to be the title track based on the sound that we created with the song, and then also what I've shared a little bit about the length of putting the album together till we were happy with it, until we felt like things were really in sync with each other. And I think the reason the lyrics in that tune are so close to my heart, as a child and growing up, and maybe as a poet or musician, this is something that we share, but I felt like I had to earn my space here. I felt like I didn't deserve the air. I felt like I didn't deserve the food, the experience, the richness of life that was around me. And my parents provided a lot of it for me, carefully, painstakingly, to create a certain type of atmosphere for me. But something in me always was questioning, am I good enough? Do I deserve to be here on the planet? Do I deserve to live? Am I going to make it? What do I have to offer? I'm so different. Do I belong? And all those questions kind of culminate into Manna, and I think the line, can I breathe up here in your atmosphere? Will you come over? Will I just push you away? And then the chorus to the second verse there is it really my turn to breathe? There was a sense when I started recording this and when I finished recording this that it really is my turn to breathe. That at 40 years old, that I would finally be able to stand up and use a voice that I've been given, that I've worked on my whole life, in a way that people could hear me, relate, listen, and be changed. And that is what we're doing. This is how Sarah and I met, looking for other folks on that same path to encourage each other. And the struggle is real. And speak about the different ways that it is real, and say, if it's a simple technical thing, my friend Sarah's an engineer, and she can show me around my desktop. It may be Mac and not Windows, but our commonality truly is, and I believe this about you, Sarah, is that it is others centered. And she's bent over backward this weekend trying to get us on the same page, just so we could sit here and have our lengthy chat about the thing that means the most to us, which is writing these things. But more than that, not just to have it in my closet to listen to myself, but to know somebody was changed, to know the case, like maybe somebody that hears Manna will hear that one line and go, wow, here is somebody who seems to have a professional career who is feeling and thinking the same things that I go through today. And maybe they make a choice based on, oh, am I empowered? Could I be empowered? Yeah.
Fell down all through the night, captured in the moon, a most heavenly light. You could almost feel it, glory in a taste. But after the morning rain, Manna goes to waste. Can I breathe up here in your atmosphere? Will you come over? Will I just push you away? Is it really my turn to breathe? Only if you ask me to. After all, you've opened the gates. I'm free to walk through. I'm going to. Can I breathe here? Is it my turn to breathe? Only if you ask me to. After all, you open the gates, and I'm free to go through, and I'm going to.
So it's very nice, very nice symbolism, I think, this idea of, sustenance, right, in the bread. And then you translated that in seeking a community to find sustenance. And that's sort of how you and Sarah met.
Yeah,
Sarah?
you know, we are, especially I think females in music, we don't always feel like we're being heard, unless we look a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, have certain types of videos.
Right.
And to talk with other
Right.
females that are really putting themselves out there, but maybe not in that, kind of almost sexual way that we sometimes see in pop music. And to be
Right.
able to
Right.
help each other out through those, what's your sound? What gear are you using? Do you have any questions? What can we do to help each other out? It really helps bring you along, and I think it's fantastic, Ingrid, that you've found that with your community as well. Just gathering a community of friends and musicians and help. It makes it so much easier. It's not fun to feel like you're alone in your work, whether it's your hobby or your job. And I think it's very, very important to find that community.
Great. This makes me happy because one of the things we try to really do with Eclectrocast is to present people as an artist, not as a male or a female. And what we do are very conscious about balancing and not having all males, because it's about the creativity, it's about the art, it's about the craft. I really want to thank you, Ingrid, because you are very clear and open about the aspect of being a female in real life and also how that expresses itself in your music. But I was very taken by Manna, the track Manna, because it opens with violins. And there's not much in your other music that uses orchestral elements. Why did I thought it was extremely effective because it gives this this air that you said that you felt you were not allowed to breathe, these violins with just like the air opening up and, letting the track breathe. Uh, was that the intent, or how did you come up with these orchestral elements in there?
I'm sure that was Rick's leading toward what you exactly said. There's also there's a trio of girls from Belgium and France named Serious Plan that are doing the backing vocals, who are a heavy band in their own right. They're very serious, absolutely wonderful. Serious Plan, and they were in town working with Rick, and he pulled them in on that as well. And if you want air in a piece, those are the three voices that you want. And the violins, like you said, the leaning toward the violins, I believe by the time we got to that track, the first track that we had finished was called Hand Me Down. Hand Me Down had to be completed because it was chosen for a film, a short that was written by Geronimo Nisa in Decatur, Alabama. And the film was called Driver. I was playing a role in it, and he was looking for some soundtrack music for it. And I said, well, I've only got one piece. It's this one. It speaks to the whole storyline of the film. So I sent him Hand Me Down, and he liked it. And when I sent it to Rick and said, hey, we're considering putting this on the soundtrack, we finished it up quickly. And it was very much in more of an Americana bluegrass style. And it brings in, there's just a light airiness to that style of music in general. Yeah. And we began to pull that element into, and I'd say several of the tracks on Manna have some of that in it as well. Whereas the ones you're referring to that are more the electric guitar, there's a dobro, there's all sorts of moody, I want to say whale sounds, string bending, just interesting effects and things that were pulled into it. The instrumentation is probably the most fascinating part about the album, not to mention the different players that we called in for that from all over the States and some, all over the world, really. And just the relationships with some of those folks that I got to work with, what it's like when you start a project and all of a sudden there's just somebody you click with. And it's not necessarily just that musical thing, but there's always a little extra depth about something you all have in common. Maybe just the way they laugh. Sometimes just their good vibe, and you just want to be around them. And there's so many people involved, and this is all coming out of Studio H2O, which is the Mobile, Alabama office, and the West Hollywood. Currently, in the throes with a new producer that's operating out of Hollywood as well. His name's Kevin Dippold, who you might know from the Smashing Pumpkins. He did some production for them. Kevin's somebody that I had sent a few kind of budding songs to, and they came back when he called me with the feedback on it. It was that type of spot on where he's like, well, I can tell when you didn't finish this one line that you were thinking that you were maybe going to write it this way, and this other one, like the chorus sounds like a pre-chorus. It doesn't quite pop. Every time I played every one of these songs he was giving me feedback on, these are the thoughts in the backdrop of my mind that I'm thinking cannot be read. But somebody with ears that size can pull those things out. And he's got an amazing sense, not just of the tonality, the musical aspects, but I did get to go and sit in the studio and record a couple of demos with him. And he blew my mind sitting there with the gear, literally, just watching him zip around on the screen. And, well, we're gonna cut and paste, and then we had one song that the form wasn't even finished. We sat in there, and so, I didn't know if I was going to have a chorus and then a bridge, or we needed to write an extra verse or something. And, in a day, we had it handled. So I was blown away. Really, really pleased with the new direction that things are going. I've wanted for a long time to have a more dance pop or electronic type sound. And I've done all organic up to date. Of course, the Billie Holiday, the jazz standards, of course, the Manna, the people that we worked with, you don't want to replace that with a keyboard. But I like to start some songs with that synthesized feel. And I think we came up with Advise and Be Right, which actually went a lot more alt country than I originally wrote it. And so we'll be looking for somebody to cover that. And then the Advise, which I sent you, I'd say that's that's visually my best lyric.
Uh-huh.
The pictures that are in it are just they're crafted. I spent a lot of time cutting and pasting to make them right.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny. It's the first song that I've written that is not specifically to someone or about somebody that I know. It was about a thing of childhood, about a thing of, that sense of those things don't come around twice is the chorus line.
Right.
The things, again,
Yeah.
hold
It's a
on,
beautiful line.
know the things that you have. Don't take them for granted. Don't take advantage of the other person in your life, but know the preciousness of that and claim it. Do something about it.
Before we go and sort of ride out with advice, I wanted to ask you, where can people go to find your music? Where can they listen to you? You play live a lot too, don't you?
I do. I play all over Birmingham and Huntsville. I've got a show in June at the Nick with it's three of the baddest cats around. Eric Onimus is the bass player I've been using for several years, and he introduced me to an incredible keyboard player named Matt Slocum, and they play with the drummer, Leif Bondarenko. And they are somewhat of a ready-made band. I hesitate to call them the Ingrid Marie band just because they're playing with me for this show. But I literally, when I heard them play first, I dragged them outdoors and said, "How much for the band? Like, how do I get you guys?" And I'm sure it's a question that they hear all the time. But they were gracious enough to entertain me and learn some of the tunes. The bass player, of course, that I had been working with for a while. So the Nick has an amazing sound system and a sound engineer. I'm really, really looking forward to that. And that's Friday, June 23rd here in Birmingham. Play Huntsville a lot. Play with Microwave Dave is one of my duo partners up there. A blues guy and a cigar box guy, real well known. They've put together a foundation called Microwave Dave Foundation, which puts instruments into the hands of kids in schools. And they're doing Microwave Dave Day. This will be the third year that we do it. It's outdoor, and it's on the square in downtown Huntsville. And I've got a regular rotation at the Amendment 21, the Prohibition Bar, tongue-in-cheek there, but they have a nice sidewalk patio, and it's also on the square. And I've seen so many of my friends, I'm living in Birmingham now, but I've seen so many of my friends in Huntsville that were strolling by the square, saw me over there with a guitar and came over and stopped in. It's that outdoor European cafe feeling that is lacking in most cities.
Yeah.
So that's what I've got coming up. The downloads, you can get a couple of tunes on SoundCloud, which is the origami that Sarah spoke about earlier, and Can't Lose is up there. I have a Reverb Nation page, which is linked to my Facebook account, and if you Google Ingrid Marie, or if you look at Birmingham, which is Birmingham, Alabama, where I'm out of, if you Google Ingrid Birmingham Sing, those three things, I'll usually pop to the top of that list. And that's my Facebook page there. And then we have the albums available on Amazon. And we made a limited edition, so we are now down to the bottom of the last box on the Amazon hard copies, which you get the jacket liners, the photos, the old school, the whole CD package. And and we're nearly sold out of those.
Oh, well, we'll make sure to put all these links on the Eclectrocasts website and on our YouTube version of the podcast as well. Sarah, do you have any questions left?
Yeah, just what advice would you give to other singer-songwriters that are wanting to get more involved in their, to start playing more in their communities? How do you reach out and find your gigs? Just some general advice there for folks.
I'm going to split that into two questions and say, if you have an absolute passion for performing and you just love to do gigs and that's what you want to do and spend the rest of your life doing, that's one route. If you are tired of doing gigs, but you really are looking for a success and a way to have a retirement, that's a second question where for that second person, and I would put myself in that category at this time in my life, I would look into your placement. Where do you want your songs to be heard? Do you want them to be on Sirius? Do you want them to be on on the air? Do you want AAA programming on the radio? or in my case, my goal for these songs, because they are so, they're pictorial. I want them to be part of films and TV. I want them to be playing in the background during that moment where the couple's faces are approaching each other. They might have their first kiss, and then in the backdrop, here's Ingrid Marie's song. I see that as a way for a lot of people to hear the musical at once. If you're looking to get, maybe you're starting up and you'd like to gig more, the best way to do that is to go to other people's gigs and listen to them. With manners, of course. We don't walk up to somebody and introduce ourselves and expect to be asked to the stage, but there are certain people that will host you. So you want to go to as much music as possible, see as much live music as possible, and listen on YouTube and on Facebook, everywhere that people have their platforms. Be looking for the style that you think you could most be like, and then develop your own song. Spend a lot of time alone, spend a lot of time doing physical activity, even if it's mundane, such as doing your dishes. Doesn't have to be exercise. Yoga seems to help a lot of people, but something about that repetitive thing. So you work on your craft, never give up on your craft. It takes all my time, day and night, just to get to the point where I'm ready to actually just go out to the gig. And I've been doing this for 25 years. So, you know, it's a life work. And don't think I would like to get there overnight. Look for those opportunities, certainly. Don't pass up an opportunity. But, you know, spend your time getting to know folks. You're more than welcome to join Sarah and I. You can get on Twitter. You can find the Go-Go Girls chat, or is it Go Girls? It's Go Girls chat. Female Frequency, I think, is the one that we met on. And a lot of these musicians will talk to each other. We speak about our home locations, where you could come to our city, where you could play. We speak about what we know about our areas, and we share those tips back and forth. So you get to know, you know, there's somebody in one of our chats that's in, I want to say Norway. So you get to hear about how similar things is. Yeah, they're all over the place. So you hear, this is how they're doing it here. These are the similarities. These are the differences.
Right. So it's seeking out community, right, around this. That's really important.
Yeah.
That's probably your biggest advice that you're giving us.
And even if you feel like an introvert, or you feel like you want to go it alone, that's okay. You don't have to be social and, you know, push yourself on others. You don't have to be someone you're not. But if you are that introvert, find an artist that's similar to that and plug into their style, what it is. You know, are they mysterious? You know, are they dark? Are they hard rock? Just plug into some aspect about them so you can share what you have with someone else.
Nice. That's good advice. So Ingrid Marie, this was just such a wonderful chat. You have so much to offer, and you have so many insights. And I really want to thank you for being frank and open about sharing that with us today. And we wish you all the best, and we're fans, and we'll keep following you. And hopefully one of these days we'll make it out to Alabama, and maybe we can come to one of your gigs. Who knows?
Thank you so much, Case.
Nice.
Yeah, I've had a great time. And Sarah, thank you so much for your ear and for getting me up on this show. Really appreciate you.
Oh, no problem.
Sure.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ingrid. And so everybody, we've been talking with Ingrid Marie, who works from Huntsville, Alabama, lives, and loves there. And we're going to ride out with a new track that is not on an album yet, but it gives you a bit of an idea of the direction that she's going in, and it's called Advice. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This is Advice. Bye-bye.
We held their wings to the bottle. We cried, no, we're not burning anything. Green-edged papery wings to the blaze of grass. We try hard not to press down, spinning until the gears have locked us down, have locked us down. your eyes on my mouth at all times. In your sight rests the calm of your storm. Most things don't come around twice, most don't come at all. Hold them close and you won't lose sight of the very first time you held my hand so tight. Blue lapis lotus unfold in the palm of a stranger. Grinning to cover our fear, turn over coins to him as he asked to make us choose in the heat of the moment. So I penciled in what I truly say to you. Be advised to keep your eyes on my mouth at all times. In your sight rests the calm of your storm. Most things don't come around twice, most don't come at all. Hold them close and you won't lose sight of the very first time you held my hand so tight. Truth running down our chest. I thought you mentioned false romances never come around this way again. Be advised to keep your eyes